Van
struggling.
Halen, 1984. The greatest rock album ever, and I know it's Matt's favorite band because he's from the UK.
House of Pain.
Right? Come on, you know who Van Halen. You can't be like the Dutch.
Oh, Van Halen.
Yeah.
I know who Van Halen is.
Don't tell me. You have to go and Wikipedia them.
Yeah, because there's a band called House of Pain, and that's why you confused
Yeah, I thought you were talking about. I was like, that doesn't sound like House of Pain at all.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Well, now we know you're a hip hopper, right?
No, far from that. I'm a rock guy.
Oh, you're a rock guy. But you do know who Van Halen is, right?
Sure.
Oh,
of course.
Who doesn't?
Good. Jeez.
Yeah. Hey, Bill. Looks like you're at the airport.
What's up?
Yes. Heading home for a few days, and then it's off to Chattanooga.
And wearing a Dallas hat. What's up with that, Bill? Dallas hat?
Oh, I'm a Dallas Cowboys fan for real.
Oh, okay.
That means he likes to. It means he likes to suffer.
I don't know who they are.
25 years of pain.
Yeah, you've been in the House of Pain for a long time.
House of Pain
with the Cowboys. You know,
that's a good one.
Yeah, maybe they can get Emmett Smith to come out of retirement and help you guys out.
Hey, Emmett used to be my neighbor.
Said all of them.
Get them all.
Yeah. When I lived in an apartment complex. Emmett was my neighbor.
No way.
Many years ago. Oh, he was the kindest you should have seen.
Oh, that's great.
He was extremely kind to kids. Yeah, we have great memories of him.
Oh, that's awesome.
He was in his
David.
Hey, Rob, I'm going to twerk by my window so I can see myself in your camera. I'll be right back.
Yes. You know what, Matt? We're in our collective home away from home as usual, back in Vegas.
Oh, yeah. What's on in Vegas this week?
Well, David, you're at a channel partner thing?
I'm here with Zebra. They have an event for their ISVs, and since I decided to join the workforce, that was like first one and two back with the gig. So that's what I'm working out with.
David, that was fast.
Yeah.
Not
really.
No, sabbatical.
He took his time.
I did take my time.
Well, congratulations, man.
Yeah, congratulations on joining Zamelga. That's great.
Yeah, congrats.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've had a lot of guys pinging on me from some channel partner thing. A guy from Blues Wireless I know pinged on me. Looks like there's a bunch of folks we all might jointly know there. And then I'm here with Ryan Prosser from Very, and we're at this. It's kind of a building hospitality event down at Mandalay Bay. But if you were kind of going after smart buildings, that's where you might hang out. And so that's where we are.
Well, hey, to our IoT Coffee Talk listeners and viewers, welcome. And hey, Andreea, thanks for joining. We haven't seen you in a long time. And hey, Matt Hatton of Transforma Insights, joining us. This guy is legendary. You know, we used to be colleagues when I was at Gartner. And I was there when
like ships that pass in the night.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And how did you pronounce your former company? Because Machina and Machina, and I mean, was there a special?
Deliberately ambiguous is how we describe it, because the more you have to think about it, the more you'll remember it. That's the pretentious answer. The real answer is we were looking for the Latin word for machine. Hang on, this is supposed to be the less pretentious answer, but also equally pretentious. We thought, we're going to be covering machine to machine. We need a word that sort of sums that up. So the Latin word for machine, which is also incidentally the Italian word for car. So machina or whatever. That did confuse people in Italy, and we didn't sell a lot of stuff in Italy. But that's
yeah, because they thought you were doing auto forecasts, right?
Some stuff to do with cars. Yeah. Who are those car guys? Yeah.
I love it. I love it.
Well, you guys are now famous on IoT Coffee Talk because Rob is just a huge fan of you guys.
Well, that's good to hear. I would expect nothing less.
Yeah.
Well, if someone wants the legit story and not the hyped up fantasy land, you guys are the ones to go to.
I
It's very
subscribe
kind
to
of you.
that. Yeah.
Yes.
We try to keep it real, as they say.
Yeah.
There's I was asked the other day about you've probably had various conversations about IoT forecasts over the years. You know, how come we haven't hit those 50 billion devices and blah 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 blah
No.
blah, right?
No,
And
ever.
you know, as someone who was doing forecasts of IoT in 2011 when those numbers came out, I'll just say there were a lot of people who weren't very good at forecasting things, because we got an awful lot closer than that, like a quarter of that, which was not bad. We were like 20% out, which over 10 years I think is not bad. So
That's not bad.
Yeah.
Well, I'll have to attest to the at least the fact that I was privy to that a lot of the companies that I spoke to really had a lot of confidence in the work that you and the team were doing at Machina and now Transforma. So yeah, it's great to have you on, by the way.
Yeah,
it's probably long overdue, given that we've been doing this for 3 years, talking crap about forecasts, and having you on is just really awesome. This is a great opportunity for you to tell us how full of crap we are, or at least I am.
Actually, we've referenced the forecasts on several occasions, right?
Yeah.
Maybe that's old territory not to go back over again. But I find this an enlightening session every. How often do you guys put these ones out? Once a week?
Yeah, once a week.
Often.
It's you've got a lot of diverse and interesting perspectives on everything. I think it's a great educational tool. Frankly, you're not trying to be an educational tool. I'm quite sure of that. But that is what it ends up being, whether you like it or not.
Well, you get a bunch of smart people in the room with a lot of experience, like everyone that's here right now, and something good comes out of it, right?
Yeah, we think this is more like a technical version of watching ESPN Sports Center. Just irreverent. Have some fun. David and I were having dinner last night, and we were kind of talking about, the early days of this show was the early dark days of COVID, when we didn't know how things were going to work out for the world. It was more than it was us just wanting to get together and talk to some people once a week, to be honest with you. It was, a lot of isolation back then.
Yeah, I was tired of wiping down with bleach my cereal boxes. I'm glad I had you guys to get me through it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you got to have something. I mean, the fact that we started our new the latest company, Transforma Insights, we started that in November 2019, and we had about 3 or 4 months, which is not normal. The first few months is never a normal thing in a startup, and then we were straight into lockdown. So we were kind of a lockdown baby, if you like, and it meant we had plenty of time to do our report writing and do our research, I guess. But it's never quite the same as getting in front of people. You don't have the kind of conversations that you have when you're actually face to face with someone in an event or whatever. So that's always preferable. But I was glad I had something constructive to occupy my time. To be perfectly honest.
Yes, you could have written a novel or something. Maybe, I don't know.
Well, actually, I did. Well, I didn't write a novel. I wrote a book. About the Internet of Things as it happens.
Oh yeah, yes, you did.
It was quite brief. You may have, I may have forced a copy of that into your hands at some point.
I read it.
Yeah,
it was good. It was very. It was hard hitting, cutting.
Yeah, Rick thought it was too cynical.
It was very cynical, but right on the money.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what are you up to today? What are you doing these days, Matt? What's the latest with you guys?
What's cooking at the moment? There's a whole bunch of things that we're doing around what we've termed transition topics. Okay, so we've got this hypothesis that IoT's in a period of transition. There's or around a whole bunch of very specific areas. Now, you may argue 'twas ever thus, but we've highlighted eight or 10 of these areas around things like moving to the edge, around things to do with moving from just selling products to selling services. There's a whole bunch of these transitions, and I'm working through a set of material on a bunch of these. One around IoT connectivity management platforms, which will be a subject quite close to your heart, Rob. Obviously, you know a little bit about that as an area. A bunch around security at the moment as well. That's a hot topic. So that's one I'm working through. eSIM is the other one that's coming out. I'm a telecom guy, right? So when it comes to talking about the IoT stuff, it tends to be a lot around that mobile networks and anything to do with that sort of wide area connectivity side of things. So I heavily tend to focus a lot on that. But we're also doing a bunch of interesting stuff around things like AI regulations and just legislation around things to do with all manner of different technologies. So that's kind of, I leave that to the other people, and I just rattle on about embedded SIMs and 5G and that kind of stuff. So that's what's keeping me busy.
And it really shows when you go to your site or get your information. You can tell you're a telecom guy, and you can tell that your view of the world is really around wireless.
It is. I know, and very much biased towards that. But you've got to have a specialty, right? And I'm also a little bit conscious when I sit down in a room of execs from IoT businesses and I say I'm the telecoms guy. I'm often conscious that there's probably at least half the people in the room are more qualified as a telecoms guy than I am. So I've got to be a little bit cautious on that. I got a master's and I worked as a mobile operator for a bit, but you've got to be a bit wary. There's probably PhDs in the room, but there you go.
You never know.
But I don't think PhDs necessarily mean that they know more than you do, just because of what you do, right? And that's what I discovered. Quite honestly, you could be a PhD in what you're doing. You've done you have the experience, you've done the research, you know the market, you're a domain expert. I mean,
in fact,
you could probably teach a PhD a thing or two about IoT. So
Steve Brummer launched the IoT University decades ago.
There, you can be
actually. That's where surprising you today. He's going to award you your honorary PhD in IoT.
There you go.
Okay. So that's excellent to have. I will. I'll look forward to the graduation ceremony.
I can't. Now that's not a. I'd love to have that with you, Matt. That would be fun.
It's going to be in Florida.
We'll do that.
So, Rob,
I think
I missed.
Oh, go ahead, Steve.
I said, Rob, are you telling me that last night I didn't have to eat by myself in Vegas? I could have sat down with you two knuckleheads before I got on a plane?
Yep.
You were here too?
That's what it means. Yeah, we went over to Smith and Walensky's over in Venetian last night.
That's where I was.
Oh man!
Walked right past each other.
Man, that you and Wireless lost a free meal. I'm not happy about that.
Okay.
Yes, he did. He just said that. Yes, he did.
Did we edit that out?
Yeah. Wow.
You know what? Just to give a shout out, we all got a free meal thanks to our good friends at Very. Thank you, Ryan Prosser.
Yes, thank you very much.
Yes.
But hey, going back to Matt's comment, if you ever find yourself in a room with telecom PhDs, know that you have the advantage that you could talk to people, Matt. They can't.
Okay.
You're good, man. You're good.
I want to say something about that too, the telecom PhDs, right? Because I've met lots of them, right? I got 25 years in telecom, man, with Ericsson. So PhDs were always the subject matter experts in algorithms and models and power amplifiers, so hardware designs, and they were fabulous at doing that. But when you talk about the whole telecom field, I much rather give you a PhD in telecom, right? Because you have the full view.
It's true. It does get very niche very quickly when you start getting into doing PhDs, right? And I, sometimes I think about what the differentiator is for us as analysts. What makes for a decent analyst? It's the ability to talk to people. Not even the ability, but it's the exposure to people, right? We have the luxury that we get in front of a lot more people than probably just about anybody else in the space. So there's nothing special about the skill set or anything like that. It's more just we've got the exposure and we can have more conversations with more people, and therefore you kind of get a fire hose worth of information spewed at you, and you can, if you can boil that down into something that's useful, then that's great. But really, it's just the exposure to everyone. I'm lucky to be doing this job. I like it very much.
There you go.
Awesome. That's awesome.
There, being that I mean, it's just funny. I keep thinking about I've been in a job for 2 days, but spending time with in a room full of people where you're trying to figure out what does this person do, what's the deal with this hardware or this software, or this middleware, this integrator, and I appreciate very much being there in person, because you get to properly read these people, especially when you ask a tough question. There's no the bullshit mechanism. It's not there to protect them half of the time. So yeah, and I imagine this is in your wheelhouse, Matt and Leonard. That's how you will report out on stuff, right? Because you it's nuanced once you come back, with research, because you talk to these people in person, and I think is valuable. So I appreciate what you guys write for all of us knuckleheads to go out there and become less dumber every day.
Less dumber every day.
Yes.
Said. Well said.
What we're all trying to do, right?
Oh my God! That could be our tagline. We're less dumber every day.
Less dumber, one copy at a time. Yeah.
This is definitely Dumb and Dumber on this show for sure. Yeah.
I picked the wrong day to join you guys. I definitely picked the wrong day.
Ryan, what's up, man? We haven't seen you in a long time.
I know. I've been traveling. I've been doing some speaking events, and I was actually in Dallas, I think last week, visiting some partners. Pretty fun. Okay. Yeah.
Awesome. What speaking are you doing? What events are you talking at?
I have one next week at Advantech over in Atlanta. We're doing, I'm speaking on IoT platforms and on edge computing. So that'll be a fun one. And then middle June, I'm at IME East. I'm on a panel. I think we're talking about AI and how that's impacting jobs in the factory and changing them. So some fun topics.
Look at you thriving.
Yeah, thank you.
Totally. I thought about that. We met, remember, in Clubhouse about 2 years ago, and you were in Michigan, and we moved to Austin. It's like you took off.
Yeah, thank you. It's been fun. I really like Austin, and I've met so many cool people, like everyone here, right? I think I met half the people here on Clubhouse, actually, between you and Rob and Leonard, and it's been fun.
Ryan, do you steal safety glasses from a client site? What's going on?
You don't like these aren't fashionable?
Okay, no, so. They're dark. They're dark because of the hat. So I thought they were stolen safety glasses.
Yeah, I got this at a Lenovo event. It was a fun one. They have an innovators forum. I'm always a big sucker for the swag, right? So any kind of hats, stuff like that.
Swag sucker.
Yeah.
Oh my God! Wow. So Matt, what was I remember recently you wrote something about, was it hyperscale IoT or hyperscale telecom, or what was that?
This was shamelessly stealing the hyperscale term, which obviously is associated with cloud providers, and trying to apply it to my bit of IoT, which is the telecoms player. So yeah, I've been sort of banging on about that idea of hyperscale connectivity for a while, and really it's this idea that. Sorry, I'm about to go into presentation mode and start talking like I'm actually doing a webinar or something like that. Right? I'm going to try and hold off on going into presenter mode. But the point of it is, you've got certain situations where it's just not scalable to address IoT customers in the same way that telco would have addressed mobile phone or broadband users or whatever, just because the revenue generated is an order of magnitude lower. And we're starting to talk about things like $1 IoT, where devices generating no more than $1 a year. And in fact, that might even be generous. I was sitting with a client the other day, and they were talking about 20 cents a year for some of the big contracts. It's nuts, and you can't support that on legacy platforms, on legacy processes, on paying somebody six-figure salary to go out and sell direct to a customer. It's got to be automated, and you've got to adopt some of the same processes that someone like an AWS would do or Microsoft would do. Right? How much would you need to be spending with AWS before you actually got a salesperson come and knock on your door? I don't know. It's got to be multiple tens of millions, I would have thought. Otherwise, it's all virtualized. So it's that kind of a dynamic. I mean, partly it's software, partly it's just process. But that's a hot topic for us.
Yeah. That's a good point.
But Rob, I want to see also what your reaction is. Part of this is reporting. So if you're a telco and you're activating mobile devices, with high ARPU, and they have SIM cards, and then these IoT thingies have SIM cards, and that's how you report. You're reporting connections, right? That's what we were doing back in the day. We have connections. Now, depending who you were pitching to, I wouldn't tell you that, that 100 of the 1,000 connections are 20 cents a year, and I paid a team of 6 SCs to close this deal, and they have to trap it. And by the time you crunch the numbers, you're like, this was a waste of freaking time and money. But reporting connections, right? We got X connections. Just don't ask me about the ARPU.
Yeah, and the two kind of go hand in hand, though, right? You can't report one without reporting the other, and then it starts looking bad for you to have this massive ARPU decline, because effectively your connection numbers are pretty much static for handset users, and so it starts eating into your average revenue per connection, and that starts looking bad for the shareholders, and then the share value goes down, and it's kind of messy, right? And so it's better if you can keep those things separate, and plus you can put in place a set of different processes and so on for the IoT bit of the business, and report in a different way, and so on. We see a bit of that, our friends at Once, big chunk owned by Deutsche Telecom, and they do their low cost, low touch, prepaid onboarding, all of that good stuff, and they're allowed to set up their own processes and platforms and all that good stuff. So, it's probably we're probably kind of on the cusp of people realizing maybe this works in a different way. Maybe I need to farm this out to a different bit of the business. Yeah, that's how I feel.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, because you're right. You talk those small numbers, and you might just say, "Actually, I recommend that you open a lemonade stand, and you'll make more money."
This is a really interesting angle, right? That we haven't talked so much about, Matt, in our IoT Coffee Talk. The comparison, to David's point, SIM cards in both cases, right? With the IoT devices and for people, devices used by people, and how do they, what do they generate in terms of traffic and in terms of revenue, right? This is quite interesting, because especially since we were talking for years and years about how ready IoT was, yet the cost of technology to go into the sensors was so high that was totally prohibitive for mass deployment.
Yeah, completely. And that evolves, and we talk about something called thin IoT stack, where you've got now a set of technologies which are much more appropriate for constrained environments, constrained battery life, constrained processing. You've got OSs that are much more appropriate. You've got protocols that are much more appropriate. And it kind of feels like we've got to a point where there's a stack that's much more widely adopted or ready to be widely adopted, that's just IoT specific, rather than having to piggyback on a bunch of other things that weren't really designed for it. And the irony is that's popped up just at the point where everyone's starting to get a little bit cynical about IoT full stop. Would you credit it?
Yeah, like what were we thinking?
Well, I gotta jump off, but like it's also a lot of these things where we're working fine in a controlled environment, and right there weren't these massive deployments to learn what really happens in the field. But I think, like fleet tracking and whatever that means, right? But like a lot of learnings came from that, because you had, in this situation, we pretty much always had power, because you're tracking a vehicle, so power wasn't an issue. But I think as an industry, we picked up so much from what works in terms of like when do you need which band or which sensor, and which of these things are going to withstand the environment that we're putting them in, and a lot of these components started being reused, which was driving the price of the sensors down. But there was such a gap between, again, like the things that we were doing with fleet IoT and things like Matt just talked about, like, well, there's this application, and I need, how do I optimize for battery consumption? Oh, we cannot do that. Well, it works on narrowband IoT. Well, that's great, but I have the wrong band. And it's just a lot of things that exist, but we're just not scaling because they were not being put out there as much as we would like to. And that's, I don't know, that's just how it is, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. And
all right.
I think there's another aspect of,
gotta drop.
Oh, you gotta take off?
Yeah. Bye, y'all.
Oh, you guys all dropping off.
All right. Bye-bye.
Jeez.
Vista.
We lost so many of them.
Yeah.
Hey, Marc, how's it going?
Yeah.
Good. Learning from what you were. No, it looked like a summary. The last 2 minutes.
It's great stuff, right? Oh, we lost Andreea too.
Yep.
Sorry.
See, this happens, Matt. This is how.
I'm smelling bad or something, or.
Yeah, don't try not to take it personally, Marc. I'm sure it's nothing.
Yeah, but it was great seeing you, Matt, at IoT Stars, and that was a great event. And it's great to have a chance to talk with you here on the show. And I wanted to touch on something that you posted recently that I think kind of went viral. It's about the IoT Security Act. I don't know what is it. Let me see here. The Product Security and Telecommunications Infrastructure Act. Yeah. And so you and I went back and forth a little there. And you stated, stop people doing really stupid stuff. So you want to share some of what inspired you to make that statement?
Well, there's been a little flurry of regulation around IoT, specifically normally just IoT security related stuff. So there's some EU regulations coming or sort of in the pipeline, same in the US, but the one I was talking about specifically was the UK. But actually, mostly they look quite similar in terms of what they're trying to achieve. And what they're trying to achieve actually is relatively modest, but as I described it in my response to you, the first priority is stop people doing really stupid stuff and then kind of maybe move on from there. And the really stupid stuff they're trying to prevent them from doing is things like hard-coded passwords, or not maintaining security patches, or what else we got? Not having any mechanism for reporting any kind of security issues, right? So companies ought to have that kind of stuff, and that's the kind of thing that the focus is on in terms of the security at the moment, not specifying any protocols that need to be used or pretty much anything technical. It's all very much sort of administrative, really, and that's better than nothing, I'd say, and it probably goes a long way to tackling a lot of the problems.
Yeah.
Mostly laziness that causes the security issues, I would have said. So.
Right. And what I thought was really interesting is the reactions that you saw on your post. A lot of it was geared toward the end user versus the vendor, right? But I think the vendor has a role in all of this, right? I mean, for them to allow default passwords and not go the extra step of making some better practices, enforced in the field, right, through their products. I think that's another deficiency and contributor to the security issue, right? But I think I kind of sensed in the dialogue in that thread that folks are still thinking a little too much and placing too much blame on the end user, right? Who might just be generally, quite honestly, ignorant. Maybe not dumb, but to a security expert, what they have either neglected or haven't done does seem stupid, right? Or dumb. And
generally they can only work within the parameters of the security that's provided within the device that they've got. I mean, there's some things that end users will do that perhaps they shouldn't, but more or less it's a systemic issue with whatever device they're deploying, I would have thought. I mean, they don't try and set themselves up for man-in-the-middle attacks or whatever. It happens because of weaknesses on the devices or the network. But then they may be responsible. But you've got to put the emphasis on the vendors to sort out the issues, really, rather than consumers, because can't get them to do anything.
But Matt, is it what vendor? Is it the Qualcomm? Is it the QuickTel? Is it the device maker? You got a lot of people in that string that brings the end user device to market. So we have a big problem in the sense that Qualcomm may give firmware updates to the module manufacturer, but the module manufacturer doesn't provide it to the ODM that built the unit 6 months ago. So there's a lot of communication issues on top of it. So the finger pointing starts and it just goes from there.
Yeah, completely. I mean, ultimately it's the responsibility of whoever sells the product to the end user. I mean, it's got to fit there. But I know
but you got issues there, right? I bought it from distribution. Is it Arrow or Avnet or TD SYNNEX's responsibility? Is it my responsibility as the software vendor or you can point fingers till the cows come home for that kind of stuff too. So, and I'm working with two security companies right now that are looking at two completely different approaches to trying to figure out this IoT device ID management security piece. And then you add PKI stuff into the middle of it and, CA related products. And you look at a Kudelski and they turn around and go, all you need is a certificate and you manage the certificates and you're fine. That ain't true either.
We need more companies that help companies who want to build IoT products. So we need companies who help these companies to succeed. And the process or the workflow that you explain right now, right? It's not gonna help. No, Steve. So if your partner are these companies that you mentioned, they are not gonna help you to succeed on your product in the long term. So we need more companies that educate and help to succeed, and less get pieces of the puzzle and try to fix everything yourself.
Because when the crap hits the fan at an end user who has been hacked in some way, shape, or form with thousands of asset trackers, who's the first person you're blaming? The person that integrated it into your system.
Yep.
But it's not their response. It may not be, information that they even know about. So it is a unbelievable question.
It's another example of a service that needs to be provided as a managed service in some way, right? It creates an opportunity, like you said, Marc. There is surely an opportunity there for a service domain which sits around security and providing that security and offering IoT security as a service to whichever company is building. Because I don't know whether your experience has been the same, but people I talk to who are makers, right, building product, the last thing they're thinking about is security, or maybe not the last, but item 168 on the list is security, somewhere below what color it could be, and what I want the packaging to look like. Right? Surely it's preferable to get somebody in to support on that, right? Because not everybody can be experts on this stuff.
Yeah, usually it's engineers. It's like, I can do this next weekend, so I can solve this. I can fix this problem next weekend, right? When I will have some time available. But yeah, then when POCs get more serious and they get into production, then they realize that you cannot fix these problems over a weekend. No, I see these every day on updating the software on devices, right? So more and more companies realize that they will need to update the software of their devices and update the operating system of their devices. It was funny. I met someone who told me that they don't need to update on industrial IoT. They don't need to update the software, the operating system of their edge devices. And I said, okay, so how old is your operating system? It's like he told me like something like 8-year-old. Like, okay, fantastic. So you have like an 8-year-old operating system and applications running on the top.
I've seen Windows XP on the plant floor. I still see Windows XP on the plant floor. They'll have like traceability solution, reading a barcode into an Excel spreadsheet, and that's it. I'm like, what? No, that's not how you do this. It's not okay. You cannot.
Well, welcome to 2023.
Oh. Oh my God.
Yeah, and Matt, it's interesting because I'm not sure governmental agencies that are coming out with these new regulations, and we have that same thing in the supply chain regulations that are out in the U.S. that we all have to learn how to follow. It's some government guy, that's coming out with it. They don't understand what we have to go through.
Well, actually, so in the UK's case, they were quite proactive in getting people involved who were actually involved in cybersecurity to help frame it, and they were also quite careful within that framing to not talk about the technologies that you need to be used or the processing, because they know that stuff's going to go out of date, right? So the conversation was all about a kind of objectives that you want to achieve. And the objectives would be making sure it's future proofed. So talking about how long you're going to get updates for, and making sure you've got some obligation to resolve issues, not mandating how those are going to be resolved, but just an obligation that you need to resolve issues, and you have to make it public if you've got security breaches, and you have to say how long it's going to take you to repair it. And none of this is very technical, and that's probably the right way to think about it, because when you start getting government specifying, mandating what the technology's got to be used, you get things like eCall then. Has to use 2G and 3G. Well, what happens when 2G and 3G goes away? We hadn't thought about that.
Well, it goes back to your earlier comment about, some of these things being non-technical, just really practices, right? Things that just lend toward, let's call it perceived stupidity by experts through end user ignorance or negligence, right? And I don't mean negligence in a negative way. It's just an outcome of just being ignorant. They just don't know about security. So default password, admin for your username. That sounds fine. Okay.
Well, now you can ask to ChatGPT, and then the hackers can ask to
Damn
ChatGPT.
you!
Wow.
I thought we were
No,
going to
you
get by without a single.
I know, me too. I
And
was
you
like, holy
ruined
crap.
it.
No, but look at this. You can ask to ChatGPT what are the security strategies for for your IoT product, and then the hackers can ask to ChatGPT, what did you recommend to these companies?
Leonard,
know that
it took 41 minutes. 41 minutes, Leonard.
I made it. But you know, there is something funny. Here in Spain, we have a big ISV for defense.
Like nothing happened.
No. It's not related to ChatGPT, but it's similar. We have a big ISV working on defense projects, and they were doing like the defense for one country, like the army for a country, and they were doing and the same company was managing the offense for a country that was attacking the other country. And I can imagine both departments having a coffee together, right, in the canteen or having lunch.
Called unintentional collaboration.
Oh my gosh, that's terrible. That's terrible.
The fuck?
What's the best result for us as an organization? Keep it going as long as possible. Okay, well, yeah. How do we manage that?
It's like, hey, you guys are going to have a bad
I would like to be on
weekend.
a team building.
It's like the guys attacking, like, hey, you're going to have a bad weekend. Just a heads up. Like, don't make any plans with the family.
Yeah. Oh, geez.
You're going to have a terrible weekend.
Yeah.
We'll get through it.
Yeah.
Hey, Matt, one of the things that I have a question for you is when you're looking at that security aspect, doesn't it really matter who you're selling it to? Because I have tried to sell security for IoT to certain CIOs, and the only thing they really cared about was whether the governance and risk assessments that their board was asking them for was the only real thing they cared about, versus the protection of the devices for their customers. Do you find that is a broad way of looking at it?
Yeah. Why do we do IoT? Well, we do IoT to make money, save money, or stay out of jail. And if it's not one of those three things, then we're not gonna bother doing it. Sure. Well, green. Go green. Be sustainable. It might be a fourth one. That doesn't fit into the other categories. But it's a question that comes up time and again. Okay, well, security, this overlay security, it should be a value-added service. We should be able to monetize it in some way. But the problem is that there's a sort of assumption of security, and if there's an assumption of security, how do you productize well, we've got this product which is our secure variant, and then we've got this one over here which is, well, not quite as secure. Doesn't look good, does it? It's not a conversation you want to have with a buyer particularly. So it's everybody repeatedly says, and we do surveys, enterprise end user surveys, and everybody repeatedly says security, number one most important thing. And then finding anyone who's actually prepared to put their hand in their pocket and pay extra for explicitly for security, tricky to find anyone. But there you go. Yeah. More and more breaches, I guess it comes with that, but it's we're not seeing a lot.
Yeah. It is kind of tricky. It's kind of tricky because, there's just a lot of talk, not a lot of real, true prioritization of security at the top of the list. And some of
it has to do with pricing, because I have clients that have 3 or 4 different types of security built into their end-to-end integrated solution, and how do you manage that? What are you swivel chairing 3 platforms, 4 platforms of security to try and manage it? There's no integrated one single screen that some of these people, that really we all can utilize that I know of.
You've got network security, you've got device security, you've got transport security, you've got all, at every layer there's some form of security. But are there gaps in there? Well, actually, what you need, it comes back to this security as a service, somebody to have a oversight of it and go, okay, well, you've got 10 TLS taken care of over here, and the networks you're using are pretty secure, but your endpoints may be vulnerable, and whatever. I'm working it through from there.
And we're trying to get bomb information too, Matt. I mean, just the software bomb, SBOMs and bombs of man. These device makers, they don't want to give up any of that information. They're more afraid of giving it up and it backfiring on them than it is them sharing the data, that's the information that's going to make that unit a lot more secure in the long run.
You know what we need? You know what we need? We need IoT SASE. Right? You heard it here first on IoT Coffee Talk.
Are you patenting that as a 7-letter acronym? Good luck with that one.
How much is that worth?
I don't know. I mean, it's a framework. It can get people.
It was a Gartner one, wasn't it? Didn't Gartner come up? Did Gartner come up with SASE?
Yeah, SASE.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Well, you know, I mean, it's just a framework, nebulous concept that everyone's trying to figure out how to implement. And you know, I mean, it's useful. It's an interesting way of thinking about things. But if you can apply that kind of idea of a unified umbrella framework to provide that kind of single dashboard view control plane for everything, it could be useful. It's just obviously very tough, even in the SASE world and the IT world. IoT is a bit more complicated, actually a lot more complicated, but you know, it could just be a good framework, right? I mean, it's not going to be a product, but a strategy. And maybe you could start to frame a governance model around that, a procurement strategy that fosters some of the SASE-like benefits, right? So I'm just, throwing that out. See, this is what we do here, Matt.
It does make sense. It is more complicated just because of the diversity of. I mean, it's much more fragmented in terms of the endpoint landscape and all that kind of stuff, right? It's way more complicated, but it makes sense, and it also makes sense to have that delivered as a managed service with somebody on the end saying, "All right, I know how this works, and I'm gonna look after it for you." But as we've already determined, finding someone who's prepared to pay for that, well,
exactly, and what they want to pay for it, Matt, and how they want to pay for it. Is it right? I mean, that's the big part.
What about a shared risk model, where you say, okay, well, if you don't get any breaches in the next coming so many months, then there's some arbitrage opportunities I can see there, though, where you kind of partner up with someone who's going to be a less than ethical hacker, maybe not.
Hey, Leonard, just so you know, I'm looking for SASE.
Oh, it's SASE.
I don't see SASE anywhere out there.
No, that's because it's a blue ocean. It's a blue ocean. SASE's a blue ocean.
That's quite SASE.
Is this a metaverse or
this guy? Oh my gosh! No, not this guy. This guy. No, this guy. Jeez.
But you said something interesting here. You really blow my mind, Matt. So you said like maybe you can have like a business model saying if you don't get hacked, I can get like 20% of your revenue or something like that. This is an interesting model.
It would have to work on a kind of. Okay, in an average year, we would expect you to get hacked this much and to this value, and if you don't, then we'll share the savings you've made. But then you'd need to have a frame of reference for that, which means what you do is you hire a hacker to go after them for 6 months, make sure they're losing a lot of money for 6 months, and then come in and go, "Hey, I can make all your problems go away." It's a bit. It's a bit. This is a nice place you've got here. I wouldn't like to see anything get broken. Kind of a model, right?
What about the insurance companies? Have the don't you get insurance for getting hacked as well? Yeah. And then that could be something that they would. I think that's their job to assess risk and assign a dollar amount to it. And I think people already have policies built in, so you'd have to have one of these type of companies partner with insurance providers.
It kind of brings the cybersecurity people in from a risk assessment into the program, where they have not been participating in IoT lately.
Yeah,
but I mean for a model where you pay more and more if you don't update the software, the latest releases from the software, or you don't update your operating system on your devices. So if you are not updated, you pay more. So it's like if you use Windows and you don't get the latest release with the security patches, etc., you pay more license next year.
Yeah. Well, wouldn't you have
to the provider or to the insurance company? That's the question.
No, I don't think. I mean, I don't know what an insurance company can do if you get completely hacked and you get and your customers get breaks instead of your product. What the insurance company would pay?
Some suppliers have agreements for like stop of production, right? So if you're supplying an automotive company and you're going to final assembly, they're going to charge you per minute that line stops. So I would think that insurance would come into factor when you're stopping production for one of your end users or something like that until you can get back up, because some of those are like tens of thousands of dollars a minute, and that can.
That's interesting.
That can bankrupt a company just in one production issue.
Or if you clone your pipeline, you can draw a pretty straight line between how long you're offline and how much money you're losing, right? So.
But cybersecurity, on this case, it's just another bullet point of your insurance, or it's like a specific insurance?
I would think it'd be a specific policy you'd have to get, or something like that.
Interesting.
And I think it would. I mean, I don't know what you guys think, but I think there's a huge compliance thing that would have to be part of the equation, and so some form of regulation. So, whether it's GDPR or some other things, like what you referenced in your post, Matt, with the IoT security, it's got to be that kind of stuff that basically forces insurance companies to provide some form of coverage, right? Or at least, solution buyers to buy some form of coverage. Otherwise, standards. I think it becomes really tough,
Or it could be standards. Doesn't necessarily have to be regulation. It could be a standard that you need to comply with, ISO, whatever the number is.
Okay.
That might also work.
But isn't that more of an implementation thing? So that would be baked into anything that gets deployed in the field, right? So we're talking more about operational risks. So what are systems in play, risks and threats against that? It wouldn't, I mean, feel free to beg to differ or disagree.
I'm not sure I have an opinion.
Okay, good answer.
You might need to characterize that bit.
Okay, you'll just have to replay that bit, and then you get back to us
and see what question it was that I misunderstood. Yeah, okay.
See, that's a really kind British way of saying, "What the hell did you just say?"
I'm going to remember that one. Not sure
that wasn't my intention.
Oh, that's funny. Well,
But at least, Leonard, if you have these certificates, you have all the processes and all the workflows that you have to do when you get hacked. So at least you know what to do. You solve the situation or not, but at least you have all the processes defined, right? I don't know if that answers your question, but at least that helps to see.
Yeah, no, it would help, but it doesn't answer my question. So, but that's okay. We'll just listen back on this segment and then figure out clearly what we each were trying to say to each other.
We have homework. Just rewatch. And then next week we'll talk about what we were talking about this week. It'll just be,
Please add a comment on YouTube about this.
Yeah.
If you're listening this.
Yeah, absolutely. You know,
if you haven't answered Leonard's question, please feel free to leave it in the chat.
Drop it in the chat.
Interesting to see it.
It's too funny.
If they make it to 55 minutes.
Oh, no kidding. Yeah. Which, speaking of 55 minutes, I think this is a good time to wrap up. Hey, Matt, thanks for joining. It was wonderful having you. You're actually quite the natural. Yeah.
You joined this merry pack of crazy people very well.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm glad to be in.
Yeah, and you'll attest that you had no idea what you're getting yourself into, right?
A small idea. I have watched some of these before, so I've got a vague idea, but it's never quite the same until you're in the middle of it.
Well, no,
that makes one of you. That makes one of us.
Well, hey. Well, you're a wonderful guest. I'm sure that the audience really enjoyed your contribution to the discussion, and hopefully we'll have you on again sometime very soon and regularly.
I'd be delighted.
As you don't find this a career-destroying thing.
Like I said to you, who needs a career anyway? It's overrated.
Yeah. Well, hey, David found a nice gig over at Zimelgo, so it's probably going to help you. So,
yeah, he's not hurt.
Yeah, it won't hurt you. Okay. So, anyways, hey guys, thanks for sticking out this long, and to our audience, same thing. For the 2 or 3 of you who actually made it this far, wow! Don't you have anything better to do?
You're optimistic. 2 or 3, say.
Yeah. So and so remember to subscribe, like, all that good stuff. www.iotcoffeetalk.com. Also, remember that we do sponsor a charity, www.elevateourkids.org. So elevateourkids.org, where we're helping to bridge the digital divide for children from kindergarten to 12th grade, and helping them to be resilient in their education and engagement in the digital economy and everything else digital. So until next time.
Well done.
Yeah. I just I'm shooting from the hip.
It worked great.
So we'll see you next week. And Matt, once again, thanks so much. And
a pleasure. Thanks for the opportunity.
All right. Take care, guys.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Peace.